Welcome to Trainz!
Hey there friends, and welcome to Trainz. Are you ready to fly into Miami Beach BOAC? So what we got here is an Inflight 200 die-cast Comet, de Havilland Comet 4. Trainz SKU for it is P12811963. And price to time of filming is $155.99. Gotta get those 99 cents in, right? So let's pop it out of the box and see what all we get. So we've got this nice layer of foam to keep it in the box. We have a stand. Let's take this out. And material check. It is a metal stand. It has a little bit of a rubber gasket here. That'll be nice. And it is inscribed BOAC de Havilland DH106 Comet 4 1:200 scale. Now, the main treat here, our Comet is wrapped to keep it clean, but I've already gotten my fingerprints all over the nice and shiny chrome wings. So we're gonna pause for just a second while I clean it before we do some close-ups. So as you can probably tell from the name Comet 4, this is the fourth version of the Comet design. The original Comet, later known as the Comet 1, unfortunately had some issues. Now, this was in the very early days of figuring out pressurization and jet travel, right? So the Comet was the first pressurized jet liner. And the issue that they were having, the Rolls-Royce, I think they were Rolls-Royce, the Ghost engines that they used were very weak. So in order to help the aircraft meet its range requirements, they built it very lightly. The skin, the gauge of material for the skin was just too thin. And as the aircraft was pressurized and depressurized over and over again during its takeoff and landing cycles, it caused accelerated metal fatigue. And then what happened is it would rip from, some little crack or bolt hole or the corner of a hatch where the stresses were concentrated, and would just rip through the fuselage, explosively decompress, and kill everyone on board. So it did take a while to figure out what was going on because they were losing these aircraft. They lost a couple of them, but they didn't know what was happening. At the time, the Royal Aircraft Establishment, they took a look at it and they worked with de Havilland and others to figure out what was going on. They did some water tank testing with the fuselage to overpressurize it and underpressurize it to kind of cycle through. And that's how they were able to discover what was happening. Now, they did issue corrections. They made the aircraft of a sturdier material, a thicker gauge on the skin, and that solved those problems. But from then on, Comet kind of flew under a cloud. Now, as the Comet 4, we have a 18.5-foot fuselage stretch compared to the original Comet. The wings are the same width. And the engines have been replaced with Rolls-Royce Avon jets, which were twice as powerful, right? So we have greater speed, greater range than the original Comet. And it's a very sturdy aircraft at this point in time. What I think is kind of interesting, if I could pop this off the stand, you can see the swept wing design, right? Which is very new. This is the very tail end of World War II we started looking into swept wing designs. But the tail is still pretty conventional, That is a very upright, propeller era tail. Not at all the kind of swooping, more elaborate raked back affairs we see on the Boeing 707, for example. Unlike your modern, Boeing 737 or any other jet that you're taking today, the engines were built into the wings, right? This was to help reduce weight and drag. But everything else, they went with the podded engine design, which eventually won out because as you increase the diameter of the fan on your turbofan engine, you increase the efficiency. And obviously, you are restricted by a diameter when you're trying to make it fit within a wing. So an early evolutionary example, kind of like a dead end, unfortunately. So now this paint job is for BOAC, the British Overseas Airways Corporation. I think it looks really nice. We have a nice crisp white on the top. There are warning labels printed in red. Very hard to see with my glasses. A nice black nose, and then this blue striping down the side, which you can probably see better if I don't have my giant fingers all over it. And then, of course, the nice shiny metal finish of the wings, as well as the underside of the aircraft. So if nothing else, I think this is a really sharp looking design. And of course, I did get a chance to see one in person. There aren't many Comets left, which should be surprising. But there was one at the Imperial War Museum, Duxford, over in the UK. And it was painted in just these colors. Slightly different tail number, of course. But talk about seeing some aircraft history, right? This was the first passenger jet in existence in the world. It changed the world the minute that it took off. And while yes, the Comet 1 had its fatal flaw, Boeing engineers, Douglas engineers at the time, they said, if it wasn't de Havilland, it would have been one of their designs. So when you're exploring new frontiers, when you're pushing boundaries, sometimes the frontier pushes back. Now, I've bought from Inflight quite a few times, actually. I went through a whole aircraft collection phase. I had some really nice Boeing 727s, a -100, -200, and a couple other really cool airliners. And what impresses me about their company, one, that is a very tightly fitted stand. And it has this rubber gasket, this rubber pad, which helps keep it from marking up the finish underneath, right? The mold lines, the seams are barely visible, and when they have to be incorporated, they kind of work it into the design of the aircraft itself so it doesn't stand out. They're made of metal. They have a nice weight to them. And personally, I find the 1 to 200 scale to be a really good compromise where you get more detail than you would with the 1 to 400, but it doesn't take up as much space as the 1 to 100 designs do. Because you try having a Boeing 747 in 1 to 100, big sucker. So I would certainly take a look at our website. If it's something from Inflight, it is going to be a little bit more expensive because they are, very nicely detailed. But I think it's worth it. If you're really looking at making a collection and keeping it around for a while, I would definitely recommend them. That's all for today. Please like and subscribe if you'd be so kind. And until next time, keep learning because you'll never know what you're going to find.
Trainz.com. Making dreams come true. One train at a time.